Joining us right now to explain how lawmakers will jump through this next fiscal hurdle is Representative Tom Cole, Speaker Boehner's Deputy Whip. Thank you so much for being on Street Smart. Good to have you here, Congressman.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so tell me, what's happening right now as you all gear up for March 1st? Walk us through it.
Well, the American people had a good day today. I mean, the debt ceiling was extended, but in exchange for the Senate actually having to write a budget for the first time in 4 years, something that Leader Reid failed to mention. They haven't done that. If they don't do that now going forward, they're not going to get paid. So we think that's a good start to actually make the Senate do something it's statutorily required to do. Next, as you rightly point out, we move to the sequester. Those are across-the-board budget cuts. They hit almost every agency, a discretionary agency. Honestly, those are going to happen. There'll be major spending cuts unless there's a negotiation from the White House and from the Democrats in the Senate to have comparable cuts in other areas. I don't have any doubt the Republican conference is very intent upon cutting spending and beginning to get this deficit under control.
So this is a positive, I imagine, as you see it. You know, in your goal and desire to rein in spending, it's going to happen one way or another.
It's going to happen. Yeah, we would prefer a different way. We prefer to use a scalpel to a meat axe. You know, we could do the same amount and do it more appropriately distributed across the various functions of government. But look, this is what the law is. This is what the president signed, the Democrats agreed to. These spending cuts are going to occur unless they sit down with Republicans, our leadership, and negotiate comparable cuts that are more appropriately distributed across government. But the cuts are going to come.
What's the chance of that really happening? I mean, we've been living through such a politically charged environment. Is there any reason to think that now is different?
Yeah, well, it is politically charged. There's no question about that. But remember, we had a bipartisan vote today, so people clearly want the Senate to do its job. Remember, we have just settled the fiscal cliff deal in a bipartisan manner that got most of the Bush tax cuts for 98% of the American people, some other significant gains as well. This can be a major step in the right direction, and it's up to the Democrats really as to whether or not it's going to be done painfully, that is across the board, without much thought or discretion, or whether or not they're going to say, you know, you're right, we're going to cut spending, but let's sit down with you and maybe redistribute where those cuts come, because not all programs are of comparable priority. But one way or the other, the spending cuts are going to happen.
Where do you see the spending cuts that, you know, if you had your way and you actually were taking that scalpel, what would really be first on your strike list there? What would you like to see?
Frankly, I would move over into the entitlement areas. That's where the real problem is. And so far, the Democrats have been unwilling really to touch Medicare, Medicaid, or longer-term Social Security. I think adjustments there can save a lot. The kinds of things I would look at would be block granting Medicare to the states, the so-called chain CPI, where you slowed down the automatic increase in benefits. That's a lot of money. I would look, honestly, at means testing some of these programs, and I would look at gradually raising the age on some of these programs.
Yeah, now, well, you can expect a big political fight on all those fronts, I imagine.
I expect a fight on everything.
I'll clue the viewer in. The representative told me earlier during the commercial break that it was such a political environment there. You referred to it, sir, as electric.
It is. Look, there's a lot at stake for the country, but I think most Americans know in their gut we can't run $4 trillion deficits in a row and then continue to do it going forward. The president just got a big hunk of revenue, got some revenue on the fiscal cliff deal, and by the end of the payroll tax holiday, it's time for him to come across on spending cuts and entitlement reforms. If he'll do that, we'll be more than happy to work with him. But the size of the deficit's going to come down, and the amount that the government spends is going to get lower.
Okay, we've got an extension now for the debt ceiling. We're looking at May. Is that enough time, realistically?
You know, there's been a lot of pre-negotiation. It would be close. This isn't the way you'd want to run your business, but the reality is it's the way Washington works, unfortunately. And just getting the Democrats to write a budget, getting us to carry out sequester, and then hopefully having a productive negotiation when we look at the, you know, the continuing spending of government, the so-called continuing resolution, and the debt ceiling in March and in May, respectively. Those things are very important. So we have three opportunities here to lower spending and reform entitlements. If the administration will work with us, I think we can get a lot done.
Yeah, you got a lot of work ahead of you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Representative Tom Cole.
Well, coming up next, we're going to